Inspired to learn Kansas stories. Learning Forward Kansas is excited to share this video series with Kansas educators and with all educators. We celebrate Kansas educators as they lead professional learning and redesign in their schools. Across Kansas, educators and students are inspired to learn. We see this in every part of our state, from Topeka to Tonganoxie, from Waukene to Winfield, from Kansas City to Garden City, from Olathe to Oakley, and from Waukene to Wichita. The size of the district or school makes no difference. Educators are inspired for students to become successful adults. We explored why professional learning matters in our first video and examined what effective professional learning looks like in our second video. In the How videos, we have focused on learning communities and learning designs that make us better together. All educators learning from each other. This video, Learning Leaders, the Road to Collective Efficacy and Student Success, is the final video. It highlights learning leaders as they create a culture of learning for all. The professional learning standard of leadership focuses on the role of all educators, including teacher leaders, superintendents, principals, instructional coaches, district office, and team leaders in creating a culture of learning and success for all. Again, we know it takes all 7 of the PL standards to create this effective professional learning that changes practice and systems. As we've shared, it takes learning communities and leaders. It takes resources and data. It takes learning designs and implementation. And it takes outcomes. It takes all 7 working together. And no matter where a district is on this journey, improvement is always possible. In our 2 previous How videos, we learned about the importance of learning communities and learning designs, and how they work in our efforts to redesign and change our systems and our practices. We know that we are better together. Again, this video focuses on learning leaders. On this journey, the first road sign for the learning leaders is why, or determining our purpose. The second road sign on our journey is what. What is it we want to accomplish? Our last road sign is how. How do we reach our destination? A road is never straight. Beautiful scenery is around every corner. There might also be a detour or construction or maybe a flat tire or even a tornado in Kansas. What do learning leaders do to prepare themselves for this exciting journey? They take ownership in their own learning. They don't wait for others. They are continuous learners. Why, again, is the first road sign. As learning leaders stop at this sign, they create a clear vision. They develop collective beliefs in their team. They clarify assumptions. And they shift mindsets as they create a culture of learning that is the foundation for their school improvement process, which we like to call the journey. Moving from compliance to commitment is a part of this journey. Listen to Kansas leaders share their beliefs and experiences about their journeys.
Part of, I guess, our philosophy in Heston, when I came in as superintendent, I wouldn't say that we had a clear vision for our district. We had one, but nobody could repeat it. Nobody could say what it was. Nobody could really repeat our mission. We all knew that we did good things, but I think a lot of it was because we're blessed with really good teachers, we're blessed with good kids, good community, good families. So when you have that, unless you're very purposeful, you're going to continue to be good. And so we developed kind of a mindset based on the phrase "good to great." And I studied Jim Collins' book and understand kind of the nature of the separation between being good and moving forward and getting better. And so we identified through professional learning, specifically, I think the balanced leadership training that we did in Topeka at KSB was critical in identifying how do we become purposeful. It's kind of that idea of moving from coincidental to purposeful. And so through pulling different things that we believe in, different ideas from Mike Schmoker's philosophies, Marzano's philosophies, we were able to develop what we're working towards, and that's a framework, an improvement framework. I like to call it our good to great framework. And it encompasses all the things that we feel like we have to do really well to move forward and become more purposeful.
First thing I can do is not tap into the talent that we have, because that's the best thing about our team. That's the best thing about the people we work with. That's the best thing about working with teachers, is everybody here has skills and has intelligence and has just abilities that I don't have. And I'd be an idiot not to let that, you know what I mean? Not to facilitate that. It's probably my 21st or 22nd year teaching that I went through the best growth spurt that I went through. I had them periodically now that I look back, but I think that those years, that time period, recently was probably my biggest set of growth spurts, because the mindset changed. Also, you haven't been doing your best this whole time? No, I've been doing my best, but my best can get better. And that's kind of the philosophy we all have, that I know I'm trying to do a really, really good job, but I know I can always do a little bit better. And you've got to drive yourself to have that growth spurt, no matter where you are in your career.
I think that so much what we do is directly related to culture and perception. You've got to develop the right culture in your school and in your business or whatever you have going with you. If you're the teacher, you're the classroom. And that culture drives your ability to do everything. So we work really hard, probably that first year and a half, about, teachers, it's okay to take risks. It's okay to fail. I would much rather see you fail trying something new than continuing to do the same thing over and over again when we know it doesn't work.
As we just heard, the journey includes helping others grow as leaders and as learners. School improvement today requires that we do things differently if we want different results. Involving all stakeholders in this process starts this important shift as the school culture changes. Learning leaders embrace what DeFore and Eaker note in their research. The key to school improvement is a commitment to people improvement. The essential foundation of a school improvement initiative is a recognition that we must invest in people, support people, and develop people. Let's look at ways Kansas leaders include, invest in, and grow their staff.
The importance of leadership is utmost on the agenda of doing things differently.
We've embraced this philosophy of simplicity. It involves, building a culture of trust with our staff, and I think our leadership team has built that. Everything we do always goes back to our people and understanding our people and hiring the right people. The district, the Board of Education, the superintendent, we're giving the autonomy to our building leaders. We have great principals in this district, giving them the autonomy within that framework to do great things in their buildings. One of the main components of our district approach is to build leadership capacity in our staff. And
this district is pushing teachers to step up as leaders, and I really see that in our department, being willing to step up in that role and lead, but with that also to listen. A very powerful part of leadership is listening, and so we all do a great job of that. and celebrating each other and celebrating our colleagues around us. And so I think in terms of our district, just the push for teachers to step up as leaders.
And then for us, the conversation will then lead to, okay, so how do you help that individual teacher grow? Because even our best teachers that are rocking things in classrooms always want to get better. They give me more, give me more. So how because I may not know everything that person knows, how do I still help that person get better? How do I coach that person to even more greatness, good to great to even better, to optimal performance? And so our conversations will be what kind of learning might happen for that teacher, what kind of professional learning are you going to be doing in your building, how are you growing your staff, where are your kids at, what's reflected in the data. So helping people make those connections between walkthroughs and feedback and next steps, and really being intentional and purposeful about why we do what we do in any professional learning environment.
The leader expectation would be that we really show the way and we grow the way. Those were some words that we picked up from Jimmy Casas, who presented to us this summer. And show the way would be that we are modeling best practice for others, and that modeling of best practices, we all know that when you are forced to teach as a leader, you certainly learn. And then grow the way would be just pursuing just different interests and needs yourself. So there's certainly some voice and choice that we build into our expectations for learning in our district.
I think it's really important to build up your staff with positives. For example, every summer I always send each one of my staff members a positive note, really emphasizing something that I have seen them do. And it's just really important to build on the successes of each individual person and strive for them to do even more.
We've really tried to build leadership capacity for learning leaders throughout the organization. And one of the things that I think is really important is to build that capacity in teacher leaders. We have multiple initiatives that are being led by groups of teachers that are researching best practice and then designing PD for their peers based upon needs that they're seeing in their own buildings.
Learning leaders shift the mindset of educators, how we show up every day, to be open to collaboration, growth, and learning. When a school community respects each other and acknowledges individual skills and participation, all staff, including leaders, move forward in a positive environment. Creating a culture of learning is a strategy. John Hattie's research confirms that collaboration increases student success if the members of the learning community truly believe that they make a difference for student success. His data clearly states that collective efficacy matters most in raising student achievement. Therefore, this becomes our target or goal, regardless of what our redesign or initiative is. What is the next road sign on our journey? The what clarifies our results or targets. We want student success and collective efficacy. Defining student success is part of this journey. We know it is more than test scores and requires both content and soft skills to prepare our students for their future. This is our challenge. Achieving collective efficacy to guide today's students is imperative in this changing learning environment. As educators grow more knowledge and skills and practice in a safe environment, they thrive. These efforts lead to creating both individual and collective efficacy, the belief that you and your team have the capacity to produce a desired result, improve practice, and student success.
We've got to understand that it's not a data central, it's a kid central idea, and our teachers have to understand that too. They're not the sage on the stage. They're the meddler in the middle, where they're in there, they're helping the kids, and they're not giving them the answers. They're making the kids find those answers for themselves, and by doing that, it really puts them in a position where they've had to change and do different things. And as they as they find that change, as they realize they've done something different and outstanding, it just emboldens them to do more. And now that culture is just everywhere, and it's creeping into the community, and our community's excited about the things we're doing, and it's just it's a great fun experience.
After the why and the what signs, we turn our focus to the how sign. The how roadside brings us to our actions. Many processes are used to create the culture of learning. Then, acquiring the knowledge, the skills, the actions or strategies, and the reflections are our next steps, moving from knowing to doing. Leading is not just about finding a program or hiring experts to come in and work with our educators. It is about creating this school improvement process, including deep thinking centered around a culture of learning. Then we can select the implementation. John Hattie's words inspire us on our journey. We are all looking for what works, but our challenge is to use what works best. Let's listen to leadership expert Robin Sharma remind us. Change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and glorious at the end.
And the one thing I would add is it's messy and it's never clean, and the agenda sometimes doesn't get followed like it should because the conversations are messy, teacher leadership is messy, professional learning communities is messy. But in the end, there's always a good result that comes out of it, and it's always student-centered.
What processes do learning leaders use? There are many protocols that can be used to begin a redesign process. One example being currently used in Kansas is the design thinking model. It provides a framework for educators to be intentional with different roles in thinking outside the box. Leaders empower people with knowledge and skills and to take actions to implement redesign efforts that change practice and improve student success. How is this accomplished? Let's listen to our Kansas Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson, share his vision of why, what, and how Kansas educators are transforming our schools for the future of our kids.
Well, I'm happy to join you to talk about leadership, and I think it's really important as we talk about learning, leadership, professional development, and where we've been, where we are maybe currently, and where we are going in Kansas. So we are rapidly moving to what we call a flat leadership model where everyone can lead. So teacher leadership is going to be really important, along with principal leadership and along with superintendent leadership. And those models are going to look different as we go forward. So it's a flat relationship, meaning everyone has voice in how we're going to create new schools for the future, and those new schools are going to be predicated that learners are going to need to be different. So I want to talk about all of those things, but let's talk about the leadership part of that. So whether you're a teacher, a principal, superintendent, maybe a curriculum director, or someone in central office, number one, we're going to all have to be learners. We're going to all have to really learn deeply about why the system that we have created over the last 100 years and served us very well will not, this is my opinion, will not serve us to really help every student be successful. It's just not made to do so, and the wide variance of students that we now have both academically and social emotionally will just not allow us to continue to group students based on age, content, and time. It begs us to think of a different structure. All of us are going to need to lead in that structure. So we're going to need to learn what that structure is going to look like, and we're going to need to learn from the best teachers that have been doing this in their classroom. We have great examples of teachers all across Kansas that are doing this model. We have some examples within teams of teachers, or maybe one school here or there. But as we scale Mercury and Gemini and later the Apollo phases, All of those are going to have to put together and coming together. Everyone's going to have to think about learning in a different way and about how to lead in a different way. Thus begs, once we're doing that, and what is staff development going to look like? Well, it's going to be personalized, just like we're going to be talking about with students. But that personalization is a deep learning, about the structure that I'm going to be in is going to be different. And then how do I teach, how do I lead as a principal in that new structure to make sure that I'm maximizing student success? Any of this sounds overwhelming? It may be for some. We have people doing it right now. We're on the forefront of really doing that, and that's where in the last 2 or 3 years we've laid all the groundwork for this to be ready to go on and be forward thinking. So that's where we're at right now. That's where we're headed in the future. You know, in the next several years, we're going to be moving from 47 school districts that are currently signed up for redesign in over 100 schools to 286 and over 1,400 schools, where we're maximizing the personalization and the success of each student so they can go on to have post-secondary success. That will require a change of all of us, keep learning, a different leadership model, and a more in-depth professional development.
The how of leading school improvement, Kansa, and redesign in Kansas emphasizes collaboration and shared leadership while using learning designs that promote conversations and deep understandings with all stakeholders. This includes organized professional learning, attending workshops, PLCs, book studies, conferences, PLNs, faculty meetings, and many more. Redesigning faculty meetings to become learning meetings creates a culture of learning and leads to shared ownership of that culture. When our work has meaning, everyone is more engaged and more committed to achieving our goals. Listen to learning leaders who involve others on their journey, bringing their vision to life.
And so we want to continue on that path. And so I feel like that I am the pivot point here. If we're on the bus, I'm driving it, and I'm taking my school district with me, but they also have some input into the map, into where we're going, and we may change along the way, and it's going to be based on collaboration. We're going to be talking through it because I want to know what others think. I want to know how they feel, how they interpreted perhaps that idea or that article that I have shared. So as superintendent of schools, I have to be the person who transforms learning and promotes it, motivates and coaches professional learning in my district.
We've got elementary staff involved, we've got junior high staff involved, and we have high school staff involved. And we meet probably 2 times a month for an hour. And the nuts and bolts of working through that is discussing professional learning and deciding what we're going to do at our professional learning days to get the most bang for our buck. It's not just administrators sitting in a room deciding and then rolling that out to the staff and saying, here's what we're doing. We are really trying to connect it with our KISA goals and with moving forward as a district.
I think it's very important that as a building principal, I have a vision. But it can't just be my single vision. I want to utilize my leadership team. Again, the ideas and the thoughts that group brings to the table are very inspiring. And then as a leadership team, we need to get on the same page, and then it's our job to filter that out to the rest of the staff. And again, as I mentioned, we're real excited about adding that classified representation as well. I think so many times, the classified staff, they are given the jobs of, supervising and helping out in all of these areas. And we don't always do a good job of teaching the expectations and including them and getting their input. I mean, they're the ones who are truly on the front lines working with kids. So that is one area that we're really going to focus on is making them part of that leadership team as well and giving them a voice.
Included is practices. So all the things that we want to see in our classrooms. What do we want to see in our buildings? What do we want to see in relationships, which is critical for us. We also have our purpose. Why do we exist? And understanding that it's not just a slogan or a cliche. There's a real meaning behind it, and it drives what we do. What are our indicators of success? We're developing those. So that's an ongoing process that starts with conversations with our board. And we've been working through what's the responsibility of our school board, and had probably 15 hours of retreat session last year to decide what's the culture of the district, what's the culture of the board, what's their responsibility as we create accountability, and all those things that are ultimately going to lead to improvement in a district where we experience a lot of success. The first thing that we're going to do in October, whenever we have our board retreat, is start nailing down what's the process to collaborate with stakeholders. That includes staff, that includes our community, the resources that we have in our community, and determine what does success look like.
Not only are we going to talk about instruction in classrooms, then how does that tie as the instructor in a professional learning piece? So as the leader of the building, if I'm going to do professional learning, I want to model all that stuff that I want to see in classrooms, because that staff is my classroom. And how do I use those same strategies to engage those teachers so it's not a sit and get, and that they are actively manipulating content that is their learning content? How do we take those strategies and apply it to what we do as our own instructors for our staff and our kids?
As we have just heard, this how process involves learning leaders designing a culture of learning that leads to collective efficacy. First, learning leaders themselves develop the knowledge and skills to create this culture, yes, more professional learning. Then, working with their teams, they develop action plans that are implemented and monitored and revised and implemented again and monitored again and revised. It is a process. This mindset of collective efficacy influences how we think, how we feel, and how we act, both individually and as a team. And the result? Good things happen. So how do we do this, and what does this look like in Kansas schools?
There are many ways that our teachers and administrators learn from one another in our district. A good example would be a few years ago when we were first starting one-on-one technology. We had designated one of our days in the January in-service to be where the early adopters and those who are most comfortable with technology would do different sessions to help other teachers and other staff members learn how to use our new technology. Well, throughout the years, that has definitely evolved, and now it's no longer focused just on technology, but we're real excited because it becomes a USD 115 best practice day. And it's wonderful to see teachers and staff members showcase different things that they have learned and they implement in their classrooms, and a very valuable experience that we learn from those in our building. I always say our district is blessed with so many educators who are outstanding in their field, and who better can we learn from than from each other?
We've got to model that for our kids. We want our kids to have that creativity. We want our kids to have that desire to try new things and do new things and not be afraid to fail, because that's where all the great things have come through, is through multiple failures. And by ingraining that in our teachers and creating that culture, our teachers have had the opportunity to do some pretty amazing things. We've got teachers on a regular basis that get asked to go present about things that they're doing in the classroom, and that's simply because we talk about it. We talk about the great things they're doing. We talk about the new things they're willing to try. Our kids are trying new things and doing new things. We've had teachers that have had the opportunity to go to Australia. We've had teachers that have presented all over the United States. We have things that we've created in the high school because we haven't been afraid to fail, that have traveled the world, literally traveled the world, products that our kids have created. And it's all that culture and that perception that we're not going to be afraid to fail. We're not going to be afraid to put our necks out there and try something new. And we're all going to work together as a team. When something fails, we're going to be there to help each other get back up and continue to grow and not give up. That mentality of grit and just driving forward and doing what's best.
But I would say the last couple of years here have it's been amazing to see the growth in the school, the growth that the administration wants us to try and do, and just the push that you guys give every day of, hey, I'm trying this, and oh, okay, I think I might try that too, and hey, it worked, woohoo, okay, I'll do more, and it's been really great just to step out and do something different. And so that was a big push for me, was it's okay to not be traditional all the time. And I think what really, at least within our department, it is the driving force is, will this be better for students? I think that's the biggest part, is this best for students?
I would say that it's no longer a closed door classroom for us. It's open door. We could go in at any point and say, I'm struggling with this, or hey, I found this out, I want to try this, or it's a great idea, and then we're like, oh yeah, I want to try that too. And so we're willing to test that out and take risks and go back and get back together and collaborate more. Some of our best ideas were ideas created even just on the spot in the hallway, and then we'll come in and take that risk and develop it. And our sonnet throwdown kind of originated from kind of a on my way to work, and then Jason and I started talking about it, and it has evolved from that point. So just an open door concept now. It's no longer shut the door, I'm in my classroom, it's only my teaching, my hour. It's now very community based.
The how focuses on implementation, or the journey. It is the actions that occur during this process that changes structures and practices. It takes time to implement redesigned learning experiences. It takes trust to try new strategies and take calculated risks if we want different results. It takes practice to embed the skills learned into our everyday work. And it takes feedback and support during implementation to fine-tune classroom practices and system changes. Let's examine several ideas on how to create meaningful, sustainable actions.
We have taken a topic and we've spent some time making sure that our building leaders are really fluent in whatever that topic is, or that content, and we make sure that they have the talking points and the skills and the confidence to go out and talk to teachers about it. And then we also make sure that we're doing that same thing at the teacher level. The trick also is to make sure that when you're trying to get an initiative at the implementation stage in your district, is to make sure that you spend a lot of time talking about it. You have a professional learning event, and then you have some ongoing conversations, and then you have some doing time, and then that cycle continues for up to a couple years. It may take 2 or 3 years until you really see the fruit of your labor, where it is embedded and implemented and things are going smoothly. But you can't just do a one and done thing and think it's going to work. It has to be that ongoing conversation and communication about whatever that topic is.
So one thing I'm really looking forward to is to have those conversations with the principals after we've done a walkthrough, and to look at what were the teacher behaviors that really enhanced instruction, and how did you know it enhanced instruction, and what was the content, what was the quality of the content that was going on in the classroom, and what was the behavior of the students, what was the indication that you knew they were learning something. How do we know that what is taught is being learned, and how can we talk about that after class and have that conversation so we can improve instruction later.
When we're shifting from traditional classroom work into more authentic learning, such as project, problem, or passion-based learning, really, again, we start with the why. Why is this so important? Secondly, when we start to talk about now, how are we going to do this? Understand that this shift takes time. A lot of us have gone through school for how many years? What percentage of our lives have we spent in a traditional classroom? And now, we can't change on a dime. It's going to take time, small bites, and low on-ramps that eventually ramp up to something bigger. We need permissions to do something differently. We need persistence to fight through the ugly that inevitably happens in the process and to find that good that happens. And again, we need to remember our why when we're in that process, not just from the beginning, but consistently as a reminder of why is this so important? And then lastly, through it all, communication. What's working, what's not working, what else can we bring in, and why are we doing this?
Once the implementation process begins, regular reflection is critical to increasing the comfort zone of the educators so that the desired changes can be embedded in daily practices. From Learning Forward, we are reminded that adults learn best from actually processing their own experiences. Reflection includes examining the experience itself. It could be examining a lesson plan. It could be doing something with professional learning. It's examining the experience itself. Then analyzing a variety of pertinent data, revisiting the kind of resources used or available, and addressing feedback. The goal is always to try to improve the results, whether that's a learning experience or instructional practice or system change.
Because in my mind, that reflective piece of reflecting on your teaching and coming back to figuring out what went well, what didn't go well, what would I change next time. 3 core things. When I look at teaching, if I can see a teacher do those things, that's what tells me a teacher's a good teacher.
I think one of the things that has worked really well is that as we've introduced that UBD template and that curriculum process that we're using, we started with it with some learning time for teachers. They worked with it a little bit, creating some units, and then they taught for a year using those units. And then we brought those same people back and talked a little bit more about how do we refine the units that we have to make them stronger, make them better, using the information that you bring to the table after having taught for a year using that material, and then you refined it again. And then in year 3, we did the same thing where each time we're honing our skills and getting better about having the conversation with what does the unit look like, and now we're ready to start creating the assessments that go along with those units that we've spent 3 years refining based on learning about it, doing it, learning about it, doing it, and refining each time we come back together.
So once we have the vision set from the state, we lose data to get it figured out. We use our professional learning communities to gather that data and implement it. And then after that, it's up to leadership to monitor that and provide feedback to the professional learning community that it's working and say, okay, are we holding ourselves accountable? Are we making progress? Where do we need to reset? Where do we need to go back and make improvements? And then what professional learning do you need to make that improvement?
As we review a learning leader's journey, the why, the what, and the how, let's look more closely at learning leaders. What drives learning leaders? One of our first presidents said it well. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Learning leaders inspire change and know that timing is everything. What is a minor change for one person may be a major change for another person. A learning leader knows this. All leaders, team leaders, district and school administrators, instructional coaches, mentors, curriculum teams, and many more are doers. That's what they have in common. They are doers. They model and clarify their purpose and the process. They shape the conversations. They establish trusting, collaborative relationships. They focus on learning all learners. They also create a culture of learning with a growth mindset. They embrace change. They want actions. They are always asking, well, what if? What if? They promote collective efficacy and they reflect and celebrate successes for all. No matter how it happens, the goal of learning leaders is to move from knowing to doing. We know that learning is not a spectator sport. It happens in every facet of our lives, whether we watch little ones learn to walk, middle schoolers learn to shoot a basketball, or grandparents learn to use their smartphone. What they all have in common is doing it. They get better by doing it over and over through deliberate practice. Educators get this. They watch it every day in their classrooms as students move from knowing to doing. Educators do the same. They learn during team meetings, while creating learning experiences, while observing each other, or during mentoring, and of course, through the coaching process. It is always interactive and job embedded.
I think as a leader, you have to spend your time doing the things that you value. And so I make every intention, and I have it in my schedule, that I go to every collaboration of every grade level every week. I don't stay for the entire 2 hours, but I do try to go for at least 30 minutes and become a member of the team. So I'm not in there as their administrator, I'm in there as a collaborator. And that also helps me understand where we are at each grade level. It helps me know the things that we're focusing on. And then I'm also available to answer those questions and to guide discussions. But I think that because I'm in there, they know that I value this time and that I have expectations. And but then they also, that's where these organic conversations come from when we're not in collaboration, because they know that I know what's going on in their classrooms, and they like to engage in those conversations with me even outside of collaboration.
It's important to have that teacher involvement and teacher ownership and teachers at the table with their professional learning. The key part of that is having leaders involved in that also. The leaders can't sit in the back of the room, can't sit on the side of the wall. They can't just be directing it from afar. They have to have their hands in it too. They have to go through the process with the educators. They have to read the books with the teachers. They have to go to the same conferences. They have to set the vision. I think that it's the vehicle for which change is made. And through professional learning, I think change is brought about. I think without that, you have silos operating, and you might have great things happening in pockets, but you will never get systematic change.
Just because you're a good teacher doesn't mean you can't get better. A friend of mine once told me, you don't have to be sick to get better. If better is possible, good is not enough. So it's essential that all of us learn and grow every single day, because the students depend upon us.
You know, we talk about being lifelong learners and creating lifelong learners, and we can't do that when we're not willing to do that. And so stepping back and saying, here's where I am in my professional career, and here's where I want to be, and what kind of educator can I be for the kids in my classroom every single day. I think in Kansas we do a really great job of that. I think we kind of expect that of each other. It's not the flavor of the week. It really is, how am I improving my practice to be the very best I can be for my kids every day.
Learning leaders inspire, they create, and they model. They model energy, persistence, hope, optimism, courage, respect, and loyalty. Ultimately, learning leaders help people connect the dots during the process of school improvement, our journey. Learning leaders frame and focus the process of school improvement by continually asking these questions throughout their entire process. Why professional learning matters at this point in their journey, what a professional learning looks like at this point, and how they plan to deliver professional learning that inspires action by each Kansas educator, each learning team, and within each building and system. We know that professional learning is the engine of change. It has been the intent of Learning Forward Kansas to support and celebrate your learning journey. As we conclude this series, on behalf of Learning Forward Kansas, we know you are inspired to learn. Professional learning is the key to implementing your HOW plan. This is your journey, and like any journey, there will be adjustments. Your roadmap is your guide as you travel your learning journey, and driven by clear goals for students as well as educators. We invite you to revisit the first 4 videos and the facilitation guides. First, the Why PL Matters. Our second video was What Effective Professional Learning Looks Like, followed by the How videos. Frequently clarifying your why or your purpose and your what strengthens your how. As educators use these videos, we hope you are inspired to both improve instruction and create systems for the success of each student. On our school improvement journey, we are inspired by Maya Angelou. I did then what I knew. When I knew better, I did better. Learning Forward Kansas thanks Kansas educators featured in all of these videos for their leadership and their willingness to share their stories. These educators exemplify effective professional learning. Each of their stories highlights that one size doesn't fit all. We appreciate each of them and their work. They have inspired us as we have visited each of them in their districts, buildings, and classrooms. We leave you with 2 thoughts. First, at our school, it is everyone's job to learn. And second, we are better together. Happy learning and leading from Learning Forward Kansas.